All right, this was about Tookie Williams, man. Y'all sit back. If y'all don't know, Tookie Williams is the founder of the Crips out in California. And this was about his final 24 hours while he was on death row before they executed him. And this one is for the youth to really understand that they don't forget nothing. And your choices can cost you your life. Your choices can cost you your life. I'm not even gonna play the intro right now. I'm gonna play it a little later, but I want to start right now by playing this joint, man.
Notorious leader of the Crips gang, Stanley Tookie Williams.
Convicted quadruple murderer Stanley Tookie Williams.
Stanley Tookie Williams.
Stanley Tookie Williams. I used to be the king of the Crips. Look at my kingdom now. This place does not make you a man. Look at me.
In the stillness of a prison cell, a Nobel Peace Prize nominee waited for his last hours to pass. Stanley Tookie Williams, once a feared leader and pivotal figure in the formation of the Crips gang, now found his name alongside Desmond Tutu, the Dalai Lama, and Mother Teresa. He had spent years behind bars, turning his life around, writing books for kids, and speaking out against gang violence. But on this day, as midnight approached, even the hope he inspired couldn't change what was coming next.
Could you imagine what it would be like knowing in 6 hours you're getting ready to be eliminated from this earth? Just look at that picture. In 6 hours, he had 6 hours to live. I don't want none of y'all to wind up in this situation. I don't want none of y'all to wind up in this situation. That's why we're doing this video. All right?
It was 1979 when Williams, high on PCP and with 3 friends, went on a violent spree. At a 7-Eleven, he forced 26-year-old Albert Owens to his knees and shot him in the back.
That's why they would never forget it. That's why they would never forgive or forgive his crime. Yo, we got Cashbox coming out in January. I'm going to tell you about that. I was going to put Cash App out of business. If you send your money, you send it to the wrong person, even if they accept it, you could pull your money back, snatch it right out their bank. All right, we'll talk about that later.
Later mocking the noises Owens made as he died. Just days later, Williams struck again, taking the lives of an immigrant Chinese couple and their 41-year-old daughter, while stealing less than $100 cash in a brutal motel robbery. Now, after years on death row, Williams' time had finally run out.
Did you hear what that stemmed from? That stemmed from him allegedly getting high on PCP, drugs. That's why I tell you, don't get involved in drugs. This is a public announcement. Don't get involved in drugs. Because that one night cost him all of this pain and anguish. That one night. I know brothers that, let's ride. I know brothers that I met in the system that got a life sentence for 3 seconds. If anybody could tell me how they got a life sentence for 3 seconds, put it in the comment. I know brothers that got a life sentence for 3 seconds. That's how long it took them to cock the gun, put a bullet in the chamber, and pull the trigger. That easy. Those 3 seconds cost them decades and counting in the prison. So think before you make these decisions. And don't say Unique Mecca Audio didn't tell you.
The morning started like any other, oatmeal and milk for breakfast. On death row, there's no special treatment. Your last day is like any other, just as death treats everyone the same.
Countdown.
At around 1, his legal team pressed forward, presenting every piece of evidence they could to sway the decision, underscoring Stanley Williams' efforts to deter young people from gang life. They argued that his unique credibility had become a powerful force against violence. But law enforcement officials and victims' rights advocates pushed back, labeling him as a fraud, a man who'd never truly renounced his past. Prosecutors pointed out that Williams had refused to break the code of silence by sharing gang secrets with authorities.
Did you hear that? They got an attitude because he refused to give up what they call gang secrets and codes. And for that, they held it against him. When the whole time, all he was saying is that I'm remorseful, I'm rehabilitated, I violated, I caused these problems, and I want to take responsibility for my problem. And they say, no, tell us about your comrades. What does my comrades have to do with me? I'm an individual. But because he wouldn't reveal the alleged secrets of his comrades, look how they played out. Listen to this.
Deputy District Attorney John Monahan remarked, "What message does that send to young children when Mr. Williams, who supposedly has their attention, tells them, don't snitch, don't talk to police?"
You see? All they're saying is the same thing I've been saying and I stand on. Don't get involved in the street. Go get a job. Go pay your taxes. If somebody violates you, by all means, call the police. Because that's what you pay your taxes for. Nobody can tell you that. I'm definitely not going to tell you don't call the police. You out there paying your taxes, do what you're doing. But what I am and what Tookie's saying, if you choose to be in the gang life, be on the street, you know it's a whole separate world than the civilian world. And in that world, you don't snitch and you don't call the police. How do you not snitch and not call the police? By not getting involved in that world. Look where this world took this man, and this is his last 24 hours before they take his life. That's how serious this is. This is a Sunday afternoon football. You know what I mean? A Sunday afternoon, as the Christians say, sermon, you know? Because this is deep. Make sure you share this video, hit the like, and subscribe at Mecca Audio TV.
Williams' case had another layer of complexity due to a past connection with Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. The two had shared a background on Venice Beach in the 1970s. Schwarzenegger, then a rising bodybuilder, trained there, as did Williams, known in the fitness community before his criminal activities took over.
Now, look at Big Tookie up there, right? So let me ask you this. You think Arnold Schwarzenegger could have just been jealous that Tookie was outdoing him back then? I mean, put it in the comments. Could this have been revenge why Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was the governor of California, chose not to sign off to spare Tookie's life and convert his death sentence to life in prison? Could this have been because of the 1979 rivalry they had on Venice Beach? See, I put real thoughts in your head because that's how me from the street think. You know what I mean? People like that don't forget nothing. So Arnold Schwarzenegger could have been like, oh, no, you talking trash back then, and you already know how we do. So Arnold Schwarzenegger may have held that against him for all these years why he wouldn't spare him, because you're going to hear the positive things that Tookie did, and then you tell me if you feel that they should have executed him or not, because he allegedly started the Crips, and what the Crips have evolved to in the 80s and 90s. And, you know, we know now they're doing positive things because you got Big U and everybody else out there, Whack 100. They talking to the youth in their own kind of way. A lot of people don't like how Whack 100, that's right. I'm going to say this, right? A lot of people don't like how Whack 100 talk. You know what I mean? A lot of people don't like how Unique Mega Audio talk, you know? But Whack 100, he speaks facts. I've heard certain things he said. When he speaks on the code, it's nothing to give a reaction to, you know? And then you got Big U out there who running things. I know a lot of brothers over here on the East Coast that speak very highly of him, and he's very intelligent. I see the way he moves. He's more laid back. He's like a quiet storm, while Whack is that thunder and lightning. You know what I mean? But that's what make Cali what it is. That's what make the world what it is. You're going to have different elements in life, but we just have to know how to coincide together and move as one to the common goal of success and survival. All right?
According to Williams' biography, Schwarzenegger had once complimented him on his physique, even offering posing advice. Williams reportedly hoped this acquaintance would give Schwarzenegger insight into his character's change. But despite his team's appeals and petitions to multiple courts, each was denied. Just the day before, the California Supreme Court had rejected his request, as did the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and finally, the U.S. Supreme Court.
Yo, do you know what it's like when you file in a motion to any court, much less the U.S. Supreme Court, and when you file in this motion, you expecting to win, but it's just out of control. They turn you down every chance they get. You feel like, I know I'm going to win this one. You don't expect to win it, but there's a saying that we have in prison that, you expect the worst, but you hope for the best. And that's what Tookie Williams had to do when he filed this motion trying to save his life. And I know what he's feeling. That's why that's so dear and passionate to me. My two children just walked in the room, my son and daughter, and they were 7 and 8 or 6 or 7. I don't even know. I stopped counting years when I went in. And I could imagine what Tookie felt like, not being there for his children and then being executed. At first, he said that he didn't want no witnesses to watch the spectacle of them taking his life because he was going out like a gangster. And I know you rat bastards don't understand what I mean by that, but you're not supposed to, and that's why I'm going to give you 3 seconds to tap off my channel. Take that with you, scumbag. Now, what I'm saying is, when you have to go through something like this, and this is why I tell the youth it's not worth it. My daughter looking at me like it's a joke. My son looking at it because they love what I'm doing. I'm doing a great job, but this is not an act. This is my heart. I feel and I know what Tookie going through. I went in, my kids were 7 and 8, the two of them standing here. I come home at 36 and 37, 34, 35, something. Like I said, I stopped counting. That's how this life on the streets do it. And it's not worth it. And if this video don't move you enough to know and understand that it's not worth it, I don't know what will. But let me get back on to this.
Throughout these last attempts, Williams maintained his innocence in the 1979 murders that led to his conviction. He had become an outspoken advocate against gang violence, authoring books like Tookie's New Year's Resolution and Gangs and How to Avoid Them, and founding the Tookie Williams Foundation to help youth avoid gang involvement. Prominent supporters, including Jamie Foxx, who portrayed him in the movie Redemption, Snoop Dogg, and Danny Glover, rallied to his cause. In a final bid, Williams' lawyers presented statements from 3 new witnesses who might exonerate him. Nonetheless, Schwarzenegger ultimately denied clemency, suggesting any past connections were irrelevant.
Any past connections was irrelevant, he said. Do y'all agree with that or not?
As the day continued, Stanley Williams met with his lawyers and 6 visitors. His final visitor was Fred Davis Jackson, a 67-year-old from Richmond who had been visiting Williams since 1997. Williams, wearing his usual prison uniform, seemed in good spirits. Despite the somber circumstances, he's so big, Jackson recalled. It's hard to get your arms around him. Under close watch, Williams had lost his appetite. A small tray with turkey was set before him, but he didn't touch it, drinking only water and milk, while Jackson admitted he didn't have an appetite either. "We said goodbye like we always do," Jackson remembered, noting how he told Williams, "I'll see you later," as if everything was normal. For Jackson, it wasn't just a goodbye. He knew Williams would be with him in spirit, no matter what happened. Only minutes before being moved to the death cell, with a guard nearby, Williams gave each visitor a private farewell, one by one. Soon after, it was time for Williams to move.
Could you imagine what that feels like to be walking down a dark corridor, handcuffed and shackled, and know that you're walking into a room that they're gonna stick needles in you and take your life? Could you imagine that? I can't even equate that to standing in front of the judge knowing that he's capable of giving me life in prison. Because we talking about Tookie losing his life. I don't want y'all to go through this. That's why I tell y'all, and I'm telling y'all again, don't get involved in the street. Stay on the porch. It's not worth it. Don't tell me I didn't tell you. Unique Mecca Audio told you here first.
Mr. Williams, ready to move?
By 6 p.m., Stanley Williams was strip searched, given a fresh set of clothes, and moved to a 45-square-foot death cell just steps from the death chamber.
A death cell. That's what we're trying to prevent you from going in over here, Unique Mecca Audio.
Where a sergeant and 2 officers watched him closely. He spent the evening reading some of the 50 letters he'd received that day, from places as far as Italy and Israel, many from children who wrote that they were praying for him. A prison chaplain was available if he sought counsel, but Williams did not reach out. He also declined a sedative offered before the execution. Though he once said he didn't want anyone he knew to witness what he called the sick and perverted spectacle of his death, he later asked for 5 witnesses to attend. Meanwhile, the execution team began final preparations nearby, setting up needles, tubes, and chemicals in the prison's former gas chamber.
See, this is just my opinion. That's all it is, my opinion. At first, he didn't want anyone to attend, and then he decided to have 5. The first thing that came to my mind when I heard that, being from the street, is that the family members and himself wanted to make sure they didn't do anything with his body, his mind, if you understand what I'm saying. Because imagine if no one showed up. That's right. Imagine if no one showed up and they went through with the execution but never done the execution, and then physically moved his live body, healthy and everything, to a whole nother location, and then did whatever they chose to him. No one would ever know. So that's probably why. That's why I would have wanted somebody close to me. Yo, make sure these do what they supposed to do. Make sure they don't chicken out and try and put me through no more torture. I mean, you know what I mean? No more of their torture. Let's put it that way. You know what I mean? So just imagine that. And y'all put it in the comments how you feel about that. He didn't want no one, and then he said he wanted 5. I think the 5 was to verify that they did go out what they say they was going to go out with, and not sit there and playing these scandalous games. Because like he said, it was nothing more than a spectacle in his mind.
Now converted for lethal injections. Outside the prison gates, about 2,000 protesters gathered, hoping for a last-minute reprieve for Stanley Williams. Among them were celebrities, activists, and anti-death penalty advocates, all pleading for his life to be spared, yelling, "Tookie must live. Tookie doesn't deserve to die." So,
Yo, when I was in Lum Park, I was there with Big Kaz, rolling 60s. And I was in Lee County, and I think someplace up in Boston or something like that with Sea-Dog. You know, these was 2 Crips, and they introduced me to who Stanley Tookie Williams was. These 2 brothers knew the history on Tookie, and they followed, you know, the path of what the Crips was originally initiated to do. While they was in the prison, they helped to guide the youth. And at the same time, the ones that wanted to be into that, you know what I mean? They made sure that they stayed into that as well. Not into that, but as far as, you know, knew what the rules was. Because, you know, they're going to ask the OG, yo, what happened in a situation like this? The same way y'all called me and asked me. And these brothers ain't do nothing but positive. Every jail I was in, the Crip car was tight. Every jail I was in with Kaz and Sea-Dog, this Crip car was ran tight, was respectable and honorable. Let's give him a round of applause. You know what I mean? We just talking about Tookie right now, so we're not gonna get into my blood homies, Mad Ice, and you know what I mean, all that. I got my blood homies out there too, but these was the two brothers, the Crips, that introduced me to Stanley Tookie Williams. And I thank y'all. I really thank y'all. That's why I'm doing it. This dedicated to Big Kaz and Sea-Dog, man. Make sure y'all let them know out in California, Big Kaz, it's dedicated to them, man. All right.
Civil rights leader Jesse Jackson, who had advised Williams that day, criticized the decision to proceed with the execution, saying Governor Schwarzenegger had chosen revenge over redemption and was using Williams as a trophy in a flawed system.
Could that have been because of the Venice Beach muscle building, bodybuilding rivalry?
Jackson insisted that taking Williams' life wouldn't make anyone safer or more secure, calling it a political move for toughness. Inside the prison, Williams stayed composed, declining a final meal and choosing only small cartons of milk. At 9:30 p.m., Williams' lawyers made a last attempt to save him, filing an emergency petition that cited a fourth witness. This witness claimed that other inmates had tried to recruit him in a scheme to frame Williams, but Schwarzenegger quickly denied this final appeal. With that, the outcome was sealed and Williams' fate was set. As midnight struck, Stanley Williams walked into the execution chamber, a semi-octagonal room bathed in a pale, cold light, with a padded gurney waiting at its center. He lay down calmly as guards secured him with straps, one keeping a steady hand on his shoulder. A nurse began the process of inserting the IV lines, but she struggled to find a vein in his left arm, accidentally drawing blood in the attempt. The insertion took nearly 20 minutes, with staff having particular difficulty with the left arm. During the preparation, witness Crystal Carrion from the Sacramento Bee described Williams as appearing restless. At one point, he asked, "You doing that right?" as staff continued to search for a vein. He looked toward his loved ones, 5 of whom were present, and mouthed something, though his words were inaudible to journalists. At 12:21 a.m., the first drug, 5 grams of sodium pentothal to render him unconscious, flowed into his veins. It was soon followed by 50 cc's of pancuronium bromide to halt his breathing and 50 cc's of potassium chloride to stop his heart. Shortly afterward, he lay still, with the room full of witnesses silently watching his unmoving body. 3 of his supporters, including Barbara Becknell, a former Los Angeles Times reporter, cried out in anguish. The state of California just killed an innocent man. Hence, the final announcement was made.
The unofficial time of death for condemned inmate Stanley Williams is 12:35 p.m. We will have an official time of death when the warden arrives to give a brief statement.
He had no last words. Stanley Tookie Williams' execution raises tough questions about justice, redemption, and the death penalty. Was he truly redeemed, or did his past define him? What's your take? Did he deserve redemption or justice? Don't forget to like.
Yeah. So what do y'all think about that? If this make you want to still be on the streets and run the gang and wind up in the cell like behind me, do you? Well, Unique Mecca Audio telling you it ain't worth it, you know what I mean? And don't do that. Make sure you subscribe to Mecca Audio TV, subscribe to Unique Mecca Audio, hit the like button, the notification button, cop the book of Raw in Harlem, the whole 9, because that's where we at. Now, cop my man Lou Sims' book. Here go the QR code. You can take a picture of it, freeze the screen, or whatever you want to do. All right?
Cheers, cheers, toast the crime, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime. Fresh out the can of 26
6. He back on the strip, getting back in the mix. What he mentions a gift. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this. Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. An Instagram page and a YouTube you could go and visit. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, Mecca audio. Get it live like 2 G's in the 90s. Drop top beamer so shiny. I let shorty go, she was whining.